On the morning of April 28, 1995, the west coast of New Zealand was bathed in sunlight, an uncharacteristic calm before the storm. The sky was a brilliant shade of blue, and the air was crisp, making it one of those rare days when everything seemed perfect. A group of 17 students from Taiputini Polytechnic, along with their instructor from the Department of Conservation, DOC, gathered for a field trip. Their purpose was simple but meaningful: to explore the natural wonders of the rugged west coast and deepen their understanding of the landscape, particularly the region's limestone formations and caves. They had traveled from Greymouth to Paparoa National Park, where they would study the geological features of the land. Their destination was a newly constructed viewing platform, built to offer visitors a breathtaking view of Cave Creek, where water from an underground cave system surged dramatically to the surface. It was a popular spot, known for its unique geological features, and the platform had been designed to give adventurers a safe and thrilling vantage point. It was supposed to be a routine outing, a day of learning and exploration, nothing out of the ordinary. The group arrived at the site, and the students quickly gathered around, admiring the stunning landscape that stretched before them. The rugged cliffs, the dense greenery of the forest, and the shimmering waters below made it feel like a place frozen in time. Excitedly, they moved onto the platform, eager to capture the view and learn more about the geological history of the area. The platform creaked slightly under their weight, but no one thought much of it. It seemed sturdy enough to hold everyone. The group, mostly students, some in their late teens and early 20s, were filled with a sense of adventure. They marveled at the beauty of the landscape, standing together, laughing, and taking in the moment. But that moment of calm would be shattered in an instant. Without any warning, the platform began to buckle. The students had no time to react. The structure gave way, tilting violently as it detached from its base. The earth seemed to drop away beneath them. The group plunged, the world spinning around them as they fell. The descent was sudden, unforgiving, a terrifying drop of 30 meters, the equivalent of falling from a 10-story building. The impact was merciless. The cries of those who were still conscious filled the air, but there was nothing anyone could do. Bodies slammed into jagged rocks and boulders below, their bones breaking upon contact. In the chaos that followed, the survivors, dazed and confused, struggled to make sense of what had just happened. Some managed to pull themselves from the wreckage of the platform, but others were trapped, unable to move. The rocks beneath them were sharp, the ground uneven, and the situation was dire. The second group of students, who had been lagging behind, arrived moments after the collapse. Their initial shock turned to action as they scrambled down the cliff face, doing what they could to help the injured. One of the survivors managed to alert others to the severity of the situation, and the frantic scramble for help began. However, the remote location of the accident posed an immediate problem. The vehicles that had brought the group to the site were parked some distance away, but the keys were nowhere to be found. One of the students, realizing how dire the situation was, ran for miles along the gravel road to the nearest house, near Punakaiki. He was breathless by the time he reached it, but it was a race against time. There was no cell phone signal, and every moment mattered. He finally reached the house, wrote a note detailing the accident, and managed to contact the police. It was 12:15 p.m., almost an hour after the platform had collapsed, before authorities were alerted to the tragedy. The rescue teams were dispatched, but due to the distance and the challenging terrain, it took nearly 2 hours for help to reach the place. The survivors, left in the wreckage, continued to do what they could to assist the injured, but their hands were tied. Some were able to climb down, while others tried to tend to the wounded. But the brutal reality was that there was little they could do until help arrived. It felt like an eternity before the first responders finally appeared. By the time the police arrived at the place, 2 hours had passed. 14 people, 13 students and one Department of Conservation field officer, had tragically lost their lives in the collapse. 4 others were seriously injured, some with life-threatening injuries, including one with severe spinal damage. The rescue efforts, carried out by helicopter and ground teams, slowly brought the survivors to safety. The dead were recovered, and by 5:30 p.m., the last of the bodies had been flown out of the area. In the aftermath of the tragedy, an inquiry into the incident uncovered a string of failings in the design and construction of the platform. The platform had been built by a team of DOC workers without the expertise of a qualified engineer or builder. The materials used were substandard, and the structure was hastily constructed. Bolts meant to secure the platform were replaced with nails, and the steel reinforcements required to stabilize the structure were missing. Worse still, there was no building consent, and the design had not been properly inspected. The Department of Conservation's oversight of the project was criticized, as was its failure to allocate the proper resources to ensure the safety of such a public structure. The inquiry concluded that the department had acted negligently, and though no criminal charges were brought against any individuals, the consequences of the tragedy were profound. The Minister of Conservation, Dennis Marshall, resigned in the wake of the report's findings, as did the West Coast Regional Conservator. The families of the victims were compensated with a total of $2.6 million, but no amount of money could ever heal the wounds left by the deaths of their loved ones. A memorial was unveiled in 1996 in honor of the 14 victims, a somber reminder of the lives lost. The site was closed to the public for several years, reopening in 1998 with new, safer infrastructure. But the viewing platform, the one that had once offered so much promise and beauty, was not rebuilt. The area, once a place of learning and excitement, would forever be marked by tragedy. For those who survived, the memory of that day would haunt them for the rest of their lives. The loss of friends, classmates, and a beloved instructor weighed heavily on them, and the unanswered questions surrounding the platform's construction remained a painful part of their reality. The tragic events of April 28th had changed everything, not just for the survivors, but for their families, friends, and for the entire community. It was a grim reminder of how fragile life can be, and how quickly everything can come crashing down in an instant. For those left behind, the pain never fully subsided. It lingered in their hearts, in their memories, in the spaces where their loved ones once stood. They would never forget the sound of the platform crumbling, the horror of the fall, and the lives that were so suddenly and violently taken from them. It was a moment frozen in time, a tragic chapter that would define their lives forever.